Hello and a warm welcome to the Irish Angle. I hope you all had a lovely Christmas and we're ready to go and talk about it all now. With Emma Nagle and Johnny Ward, three of us are here. We're going to have a chat about all the things that happened over Christmas. Emma, Johnny, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Vincent.
Now, first off, Emma, was it the best Christmas racing you've ever seen?
Yeah, geez, I'd say like from starting on Stephen's Day all the way through to yesterday, like it was jam packed. So many good clashes, and we'll get into them, I suppose, in more detail. But yeah, it was some viewing, like, and you would kind of nearly have tempted to stay at home and watch most of the racing because it's kind of hard to keep track of it when you're on course. But Galopin Des Champs definitely drew me to Leopardstown on Saturday. He's kind of a horse. There isn't too many horses like that in racing. I don't think that you kind of say I have to be there when he's running, but he's definitely one for me. And yeah, it was some spectacle. That was probably my highlight of it. But I'm sure we'll go into it in more detail later. But yeah, geez, it was some 4 days of racing.
Yeah, so he got the biggest crowd of the week as well the day he turned up. The other thing is, you talk about watching it at home, getting to see it. You couldn't see much in Leopardstown the first day or two anyway, and same I think in Aintree as well. They had problems in the UK as well. Johnny, how about yourself? Did you go racing?
I was intending to go racing on the 27th at Leopardstown, but like what seemed about 90% of the country, we were laid low. I didn't basically haven't. I think I lost weight this Christmas. We were eating toast and nothing else for about 3 days, no drink and all of that. So I was on the couch. Then I got to Limerick yesterday for the tail end of it. I suppose the only strange thing about the Christmas, and it was so good, was that we had, like, off the top of my head, we had four really, really good kind of matches on paper involving William Mullins horses, and they turned out to be not really races, any of the four of them. Like, it was just a convincing winner. So we've loads to talk about. I do feel that the National Hunt season, for all that a lot of horses emerged from the Christmas with question marks you weren't expecting, I do feel that we've a sensational season in the offing now.
Yeah, well, we'll start off with one of the big ones. First of all, is the big division, the Staying Chase division. It looked like it was going to be a vintage Gold Cup this year. I could have named you 10 off the top of my head that I thought had chances of winning it. Now all of a sudden we're down to one. Galopin Des Champs. How good is he, Emma?
Oh, he's the best chaser I've ever seen. I think that just that performance, like I suppose this year was the year that they were coming to challenge him. I know there was challenges last year and the year before as well, but this year, we were talking up all these novices, Factifias, Bland's Tower. They got the better of him in the John Durkin, but like around Leopardstown and around Cheltenham, he's just a totally different animal. The jump he put in at the last, like, it was. I watched the race back this morning. I've watched it a few times now. You just get goosebumps watching him. And I think even just watching Paul Townend's reaction after crossing the line, like, he's not really an animated kind of jockey. Like, he kind of keeps things cool most of the time, but you can kind of see how much the horse means to him as well. And she's like, even just seeing, I was up in Leopardstown and seeing the crowd's reaction to him, like, he's really just kind of a horse of a lifetime, I suppose. And I'd be surprised if anything can beat him in Cheltenham now, to be honest, because I think his biggest attribute, like, Paul jumped him off and he just stays so well. Like, even coming down the back straight in Leopardstown there, maybe he wasn't jumping bad, but maybe he wasn't pinging fences and, kind of saying, God, are they going to catch him here? And the further he went, the better he got. Like, as I said, the jump at the line, and Paul could barely pull him up. He's a bit of a freak, like, and people are kind of speculating where he rank among the greats. But geez, he's right up the top for me anyway. He's just brilliant.
I agree. He's one of the best I've seen too, because I never saw Arkle in the flesh. So there you are. Just missed that by a few weeks, I think. Anyway, the other one for you, Johnny, on this, just around it, JP McManus. He's only ever had one Gold Cup winner, I think. He's going to have to a bit of a wait for a second one. We thought this was going to be the year with Factifiles, Bland's Tower, but they just look like they're going to fall a bit short, do they?
It's very early days, though. Like, these are two horses who are just out of novice division, and they fought out the finish in the John Durkin. I felt Galopin Des Champs was too big in the betting that day, but probably it was just that he does need a bit of a trip these days, and he just might be better going left-handed. He may well be better going left-handed. But I did feel coming into this race that he was vulnerable. The market, for me, there was a really major support for him. The day or two before the race and the morning of the race, he was smashed into odds on when he definitely looked vulnerable taking on Factifile. But for me, watching these Staying Chasers over the years, it's really difficult to keep your form. You're jumping 17 fences here. Galopin Des Champs, he's not mollycoddled like Best Made. He really runs in these races, like, from the start of the season, essentially right all the way to Punchestown, when then he might be a bit over the top. But then to come back again, 8 going on 9, to go back for a third Gold Cup, it's difficult. But the funny thing about the race is, you look at the ratings of the first four home, 177. He beat Factifile, who's rated 169 by 7.5 lengths. Factifile beat Gentleman's Game by 5 lengths. He's rated 9 pounds inferior, and rated 6 pounds inferior is Heartwood, who finished fourth. So they actually finished almost in the order that you kind of expect them to finish if they ran their race in terms of the handicap ratings. Galopin Des Champs for me this was possibly his best performance, but this is why we love racing. Factifile came in on the back of one run, where he was probably going to come on for the run a little bit, but he won one against the big boys. This was a different test. Like, you're taking on, there was so much of last year's performance for this for me. It was that revolving camera looking at Galopin Des Champs coming into the straight, Paul Townend travelling on him, coming up the near side, and watching his rival in behind, fast or slow last year, this time Factifile. Mark Walsh holding on to him, seeing how much he left. And I thought Factifile ran a really good race. He was beaten 7.5 lengths, and he was a 13th second favourite, but he smashed everything else. And he's still a very, very likely race horse, who skipped hurdling. And Cheltenham is still, it's an unbelievable jumping test, the Gold Cup. You're going at it the whole time. You got to remember when Galopin Des Champs first won it, he was held up to kind of get the trip, and he got a bit of luck on the way. He'll be ridden differently in March, but I'm not just jumping to conclusions yet and saying it's definitely Galopin Des Champs Gold Cup, because it's too early to say about Spillane Tower. Like, he did have a bit of an off day in the King George, but this is all about learning experience. King George is a massive jumping test for horses just out of novice division, and the same with Factifile here. He wasn't up to it on the day, but they still have upside to take on Galopin Des Champs. For me, whatever Emma says about him, it's hard to disagree. Like, to keep going back and to smash these horses, like he smashed them, he absolutely hammered them on the day, and he was so fresh jumping the last. It was an incredible performance, and I only wish I was there to see the adulation he got. But I'm not jumping to the conclusion that the Gold Cup's a foregone conclusion just yet.
So you won't be taking the 5-4 about Galopin Des Champs at the moment. It's an offer with the
No.
bookies, so fair
No,
enough.
I wouldn't.
Right.
I feel, that I still have that nagging doubt. It's so he's such a hard race in the Gold Cup last year. It's really, really hard to keep going at this level. And one day he will. Nicky Henderson said one day Constitution Hill will be beaten. Maybe he won't, but Galopin Des Champs, he will catch up to him at some stage. And those two McManus horses, they still have a little bit of upside. And even though I know the way you're thinking, he bombed out, I've still not given up on him either.
Very good. Okay. Well, we'll move across to the other division that you were talking about, Constitution Hill. Obviously, that was the big one over the whole of Christmas, in anticipation of Constitution Hill against Lossiemouth in Kempton. It didn't live up to quite what we thought it might be, I suppose, in some levels of it, with Lossiemouth didn't perform to her best, but at the same time, Constitution Hill is back, and doesn't he jump hurdles unbelievably? What do you think, Em?
Yeah, it was brilliant to get him back. Like, even I suppose when he was declared, there was still a bit of speculation, like, would he actually make it on the day with all the issues he's had? But like, always brilliant to see a horse like him back on track. But like you said, I think kind of from the minute they jumped off, you were just a bit worried, was this contest going to play out as it should have? I suppose Lossiemouth, she just never looked happy. I don't know. There's people posting different stats about Willie's runners over the Christmas. Were some of them a little bit off form? I'm not sure, but she definitely didn't look happy anyway. Her ears were pinned back or to her head, and she just never liked to go the gallop. I suppose you could say, like, she's never been in a race like that before. Maybe she's just not able to go that pace. But I don't know. I'd be surprised if that was the real Lossiemouth, to be honest. And I think you have to give her loads of credit as well, how close she finished in the end. But Constitution Hill, like, he maybe had to dig a little bit deeper than he has before. I'd say it might have been the first time he came off the bridle since he's point to point, was it? But like, sure, he should come on leaps and bounds for that. He's got odds on for the champion hurdle. You can see why. And the champion hurdle picture now, like, we're talking about the Gold Cup, but I think the champion hurdle picture is still really, really interesting, even when we have an odds on anti-post favourite, because like the performance of Brighterdaysahead, and I think like Willie doesn't sound like he's totally gone off the idea of a champion hurdle for Lossiemouth either. Like, I think I'd say they learned a bit about her in Kempton, and they probably fancy their chances coming back again to try him again at a stiffer track like Cheltenham. But yeah, brilliant to see Constitution Hill back on track, and yeah, great few days for Nicky Henderson getting the two better over Willie in Kempton.
Yeah, the other thing, just looking at that champion hurdle in general terms, last year's winner is the most unlikely winner we have of the main four going into it this time. What do you think of that, Johnny Stateman? Brighterdaysahead. This performance that we saw in Leopardstown was beyond belief, to be honest with you. A horse winning a grade one like that, 30 lengths, with a champion hurdle winner back in his wake, and couldn't even hold on to second in the end. He was drunk going by the post. Brighterdaysahead could be absolutely anything.
Yeah, I'd just like to give a mention to Sandy Shaw, who retired as the National Hunt handicapper over the Christmas. He was an absolute gentleman. I don't think you'll hear one trainer ever give out about Sandy. Always at the races, followed on from the late Noel O'Brien, who's such a gentleman himself, and Shay Quinn and Mark Bird have taken over now. But I mentioned this because I was talking to Sandy this morning. I said, your last job is to give a rating to the mayor for what she did yesterday, and he was too professional. He said, well, I can't do that anymore. It's not my job, and it'll only be impinging on the two lads. So that's fair enough. But like, how can you believe this? How can you win a 2 mile grade hurdle as second favourite by 30 lengths, where, you know, Stateman is then, you know, beaten by Winter Fog, having put Paul Townend in a really tricky situation throughout, where Ruby Walsh said he felt that the two Jigginstown horses were going too hard. They certainly weren't going at any stage too slow, because you're looking at them and it's like, are they going to maintain this gallop? While at the same time, this is going to be very, very tough for Stateman, who a long way out, you can tell, like, he's beaten here. He's definitely beaten. So on the back of, you know, his defeat in his seasonal return, and he obviously does look very vulnerable at Cheltenham now. I mean, he can never beat Constitution Hill if Constitution Hill turns up anyway. I have to say, no, I could not get the betting before the race on this, because she had one go at beating him and she beat him. She's probably better going left-handed. And for me, she at Punchdown, she would have been better getting the leads. And when I was looking at the race, like, she's going to get a pacemaker here. She's not going to have to make the run, because that wasn't ideal for her on the day. And she's only 5 going on 6. So she's plenty of upside. And we know that Stateman is vulnerable against better horses like Constitution Hill. Now, I didn't expect a 30-length victory, and it was really, really extraordinary stuff. It was absolutely extraordinary. She had a really hard race, you'd have to say. Like, I think she will need a bit of time to recover from that. And please, you know, Jigginstown and Gordon Elliott, don't even contemplate running her in the mare's hurdle. Like, who gives a about the mare's hurdle? You want Lossiemouth, you want Stateman, you want Constitution Hill, and you want this wonder mare taking each other on for the sake of National Hunt racing, that we've a race to look forward to on day one. Like no champion hurdle probably since Brave Inca, Archibald and Hardy Uses. Like, I would never have looked forward to a champion hurdle as much since. If we have the 4 of them going hammer and tongs at it, it'll be something else. But it was an extraordinary performance, and massive kudos to Jigginstown and Gordon for getting the tactics right, because, like, I made this point, Richard Forrest had an article about the you know, the Happens Grace, saying that the tactics were wrong, and I was saying to, he did an article in the Race and Boast about the Elliott tactics, and I was pointing out, well, like, basically you've different owners in the race here. It's not their job to set it up for Teopu. It's they're, you know, they're running their horses for their owners. With this race, you had 2 horses owned by Jigginstown, and you had a hot favourite who's obviously the apple of Eddie and Michael's eye. And they could run King Kingsfield in a sense and kind of create some sort of a race. But this is why we love racing, because on the face of it, you had a 1-2 shot against a 2-1 on shot. But the 1-2 shot was never, ever happy, because Paul Townend was in a hopeless situation here. If I go after the mare early, I might even forfeit second. He didn't do that, and he still couldn't finish second. That's how good she was on the day. But performances like this, Vinny, I do find it's just a bit, it's too good to be true in some respects, because if you took this on face value, she's rated to go to 200, and she's not.
Well, the other thing here is, look, we know some of these Willie horses over Christmas, Lossiemouth, Ballyburn and Stateman, didn't run to their true performance that we know they had. So you can probably draw a line through the Stateman piece. But can he come back, Emma? Can you see him come back and be a contender for a champion hurdle in March?
No, I don't know. I don't know when I say that now, Vincent. I think Ballyburn ran his race. Stateman couldn't go to Gallop. I'd say it was the tactics beat Stateman. I don't know, maybe he was under himself on the day, but I just think, like, the way that the Elliott team obviously thought out this
what
race.
Tactics, Emma, though?
They went flat out. They went as fast as they could, and the fact that she was able to keep going and pick up again off that pace was unbelievable. Like, Stateman couldn't go. He couldn't go to Gallop at all, and like, there was such a gap to bridge. They were just hoping that the mare would fall apart in front, and like, I'd say like 99% of horses, when they go that quick, like, they will fall to pieces. But she's obviously an exceptional mare to be able to go that fast, pick up again, and put to bed. Like Stateman's a brilliant horse, but he just wasn't able to do it on the day. And like, if they deploy those tactics again in a champion hurdle, if they go that quick around Cheltenham, like, she could be really, really hard to pass here. I was actually surprised. Before the race, she was 20-1 for the champion hurdle. She's got to about 4s now, but she's a serious mare. I'm really surprised by the comments about going for the mares, because I remember when she won in Down Royal at the start of the year, And Gordon kind of let it slip that, it was his dream to win the champion hurdle, and she might be the one to do it. But they've been kind of putting cold water on the fire then ever since. And I just saw there on Twitter that Eddie O'Leary was on the Nick Daily again today, kind of saying again, we're going for the mares. And
like, will you stop it? Seriously, will you stop? Like, the mares hurdle, who gives a Who gives a Run her against Constitution Hill. Run her for the sake of race.
Yeah, I don't mind the mare's hurdle, but like if you've got a mare like this, you have to put her against Constitution Hill because she's got a real life chance of beating him as well. And like even going down, if she runs a good race behind Constitution Hill, it's better than winning a mare's hurdle, I'd say anyway. Like all races at the Cheltenham Festival aren't equal. Like the champion hurdle should be at near the top of anyone's list. I couldn't understand any decision to send this mare to a mare's hurdle because I think she is probably the one with the best chance of beating Constitution Hill if anyone can do it.
Yeah, looks like that at this stage. The other thing is she's going to go chasing long term anyway, so she'll be a Gold Cup prospect or what she'll be in 2 or 3 years' time. So what she does over hurdle is only a bonus. So you may as well go and get your bonus or at least try for it with the champion hurdle, I would have thought. Anyway, move on to another one here. The novice chase division. Sir Gino, that turns out his Newbury race course gallop with Constitution Hill was probably one of the best race course gallops we've ever seen. He looks exceptional, Sir Gino, doesn't he, for a young horse? First time over fences. Now, I know you're saying you thought Ballyburn may have run his race. I'm not sure he did. I thought he looked beaten too far out for me to be the Ballyburn we saw last year over hurdles, or that we saw first time out over fences as well, where he looked exceptional. What do you make of him, Johnny? Ballyburn or Sir Gino?
Yeah, like I've been on about Sergino since he smashed Burdett Road. Like I fancied Burdett Road to beat him that day, and he absolutely walked by him. And Burdett Road had done nothing bad for the form since. Obviously, been put in his place at Kenton, but Sergino, who was so young and so inexperienced, and the way he finished the race so fresh that day, and I was like, what are they going to do with this horse? Because imagine if he ran in the champion hurdle as well against the other four. How would he be priced up? Like genuinely, it'd be amazing. And to be honest, I've no issue with him going into the novice chase division because he's that exciting. But this is like the gambling difficulty, Vinny, of like when you're at it. Let's just say it's a normal day. That's one thing, and it's difficult. But you add in the fact that it's Christmas, you're kind of on a high, and you might have had a couple of glasses of wine or whatever, and then you see Ballyburn at 7-4 in any race, which is effectively a match, and you're like, how can Ballyburn be 7-4 in a novice chase? It just makes no sense. Like this is the next coming, and how can Lossiemouth be so weak? And like how can some other horses? How can Factifoil be so weak? But principally, the two Mullins horses that went over, Ballyburn and Lossiemouth, why were they so weak in the betting? Or was it that the Henderson horses were that strong? And Ballyburn at 7-4, I was like, Jesus, this doesn't make any sense, really, as good as Sergino is. But I agree with you. There's no way he ran his race. Look at his jump at the last. Like he was like a 95 rated horse who was just thrown in at the deep end. Like he was absolutely legless at that stage. And so I don't really think he ran his race. And you're wondering, like, why was he so weak in the betting? Like I genuinely do ask that question. Like, how is he 7-4 and then be smashed out the gate? Like he could have beaten him by about 15, 20 lengths if he wanted. But Sergino was exceptional. I mean, it was a fascinating race to watch. The only thing for me was a bit like Lossiemouth and Constitution Hill. The spectacle was kind of fading away halfway through. You're like, this race is over halfway through. Where you could tell in both races the Willie Mullins horse wasn't really going. But Ballyburn, I did notice there was speculative money for him for the Stairs hurdle. And when you sort of think about it, he either runs in the Arkle, which he's no chance in now, or he runs in the 3 mile race as a novice chaser. Or his jumping wasn't good, by the way, in the race. Like it wasn't good. So are they going to go back maybe the Stairs hurdle route? Just saying, it could happen.
Yeah, his jumping definitely wasn't good, but I'd be inclined to think, look, there's a strong chance with the Willie Mullins form over Christmas. He'd 7 winners this Christmas compared to 16 last year. Horses didn't all fire. Some of them fired unbelievably well, but a lot of them didn't. And there were a lot of drifters. There was that horse that he'd given to you, Emma, the dark horse, Kai Doughty, is it? Even money out to 7-2 before it won at Leopardstown because there had been a few flops the previous day as well. So I'd be inclined to give a little bit of a free pass to some of the Willie Mullen ones, possibly even Factifoil as well. Lossiemouth, Ballyburn and Stateman. But at the same time, it's very hard to see any of them reverse the form that we saw at Christmas come March with the ones that beat them. That's what I would have thought. Moving on, one other race we haven't discussed is the King George. Emma, what did you make of that? Banbridge and Joseph. What a week Joseph O'Brien had. 3 Grade 1 winners.
Yeah, geez, he's having some time of it. Three big winners in the jumps. Like I'd say he only has about 20 jumpers, but they all seem to be nearly top class. But yeah, it was. I actually felt sorry for the French horse, to be honest. Like he put on some show from the front and thought he was going to kind of back up that novice chasing performance from the year before. But like they gave him an easy enough time of it. But I suppose like I had Paddy Flood on the show on Friday, and he was kind of saying like the horses just weren't able to go with him in behind, and you could probably make that case as well. But he was brilliant from the front. But Banbridge and the two of you were tipping him last week. I gave him a bit of a chance, but to be honest, I thought there was better horses in the race. But it's probably a horse who gets underestimated massively. Like he's won loads of big races, overall trips, 2 miles, 3 miles, 2.5 miles. I was kind of thinking then, like, where will they go next? But I'd say that could have been maybe Banbridge's Gold Cup, like the King George. Maybe that's probably the time he'll get the 3 miles. He mightn't get his ground later on in the year, and it's brilliant training performance to get him there, because like his first run this year was desperate. He went on then and he ran a brilliant race in Cork. And to get him to the King George in that shape, like 3 kind of runs in quick enough succession, like Joseph definitely knows what he's doing with these jumpers, I'd say.
Yeah, and Ergamine, it paints that form in a nice light as well, doesn't it? From the hilly way chase down in Cork. So an Ergamine could be certainly one for the champion chase. Anyway, a couple of other things to look at here. Gordon Elliott, he had his 100th Grade 1 winner when Brighter Days Ahead won. It was also his 2000 National Hunt winner. He had a great Christmas, didn't he, Johnny?
He did, yeah. And you speak about Gordon wanted to win the champion hurdle again. Like I did a piece with Noel Moore, and that'll be in the Currency, kind of around the Lawlers of Hotel, because Better Days Ahead, because what's the name of the 8th horse? The Yellow Clay is going to run that day in Ace. So I'll do a piece around that. And, speaking to Noel about how he stood by Gordon, you have to remember the hysteria of the time that what Gordon has come through, and owners abandoned him, really, which kind of mad when you think about it. And the fact that he's come back from that, and, it was notable that he spoke about the loyalty of Jigginstown as well afterwards. And I thought I thought there was a bit of class from Gordon after the Mayor won, when within 2 or 3 sentences he said, "This is still Jack Kennedy's ride, and when Jack Kennedy's back, he'll be on her." I thought that was just a lovely thing to do. Jack Kennedy's at home, probably like with one foot on a footstool, with another leg break, feeling shite basically about life with a 6th leg break. And to think of him at that moment, I thought that was a real moment of class from Gordon. He's a really good team around him. Obviously, he's very hungry, and there is a sense that we bemoan the fact that Willie Mullins has been so dominant relative to others, because you want National Hunt race to be competitive, but a bit like Kilkenny hurlers or Dublin footballers, it has raised the standards of others, and Gordon wants to win the title. Like, there's no doubt about that, and he'll be hungry until he achieves that to do it. And he had a fantastic Christmas. On Joseph, like I was at Dundalk, the last Dundalk week I was at a couple of weeks ago, and before racing, there were 8 or 9 2-year-olds, would be 3-year-olds now in a couple of days, who were working, and I was like, just said to your man, I don't know who his name was, it was with Joseph, like, who was working the horse for Joseph, was like, how does he keep a handle on this? Like, these are like 8 or 9 unraced 2-year-olds. He's running Banbridge in the King George. He's running Solness. He's running Home by the Lee. He's like, how does he keep a handle of all these? And he just said, the man has a head like a sponge. And I think it is time for us to recognise, as young as he is, Melbourne Cups to King George's to, classics. Like, this is an astonishing man, like what he's achieving at this age.
And could you see him taking more of a hand in the National Hunt going forward, Emma? Because he had a big National Hunt string, and then he dropped them all. He did like Jessica Harrington, focused on the flat, and he's done unbelievably well on the flat, I suppose. Though numerically he seems to have just a gazillion horses, so he's bound to have a few winners. But could you see him coming back to the jumps a little bit more?
I don't know. I'd say he kind of does it more as kind of a bit of fun during the winter than being a business model. I see he doesn't have room for them. Like, does he? He must have the guts of 250 flat horses and showing a few jumpers there. Unless he builds another yard, I'd say the jumpers will probably be keeping to a minority. But I'd say they have great fun under the jumpers, obviously, but focus probably on the flat. But like, I'd say if he shifted his focus to the jumpers, like, Willie and Gordon might be getting a bit shaky, because
I think himself and Aidan should go back training jumpers altogether. Like, Aidan should go back training like about 50 jumpers a season for the crack. But like, it was interesting before we came on, you were saying about Joseph, the modern trainer in terms of like updates as well.
Yeah,
this is the thing, isn't it? That he uses all the latest technology to inform his owners. Em, isn't that right?
I think there's a few trainers using it's the racing manager app, I think. So the owners kind of get constant updates on their horses and things, and it's the way forward. And obviously, like you forget how young Joseph was. Like you said, like he about 30, 31, maybe about that age. Like, and the races he's won, like, and he's obviously ahead of the technology aspect of all that. So yeah, I'd say whatever he kind of focuses on, he'd probably be champion trainer, and he probably would be champion trainer over jumps if he switched his focus there at some stage.
Yeah, let's look at some of the other things from last week. First one I wanted to just say, for the sake of it, it's good news anyway. Leopardstown, their attendance was up over the 4 days. Some nice attendances. They got nearly 18,000 on the second day, 17,000 on the first 3 days, over 17,000, and nearly 11,000 the last day was the one day that was down for attendances. But it was great to see those numbers up. And of course, Emma, you were there yesterday, and you said you had a nice experience. Lots of things were being done right compared to maybe this time last year or the Dublin Racing Festival last year. So they're learning lessons and all ready to go for 2 months' time.
Yeah, I was there Saturday, went to see Galopin. And yeah, like I hadn't been to Leopard. Had I been to Leopard? I probably hadn't been there since the Dublin race. No, I've been flat racing, but not for the jumps. It'd be awful lot quiet in the flat. But I haven't been jumps racing in Leopard since the DRF last year. And to be honest, I thought that wasn't that an enjoyable of experience. It was just too busy and there wasn't facilities to handle the people. But they seem to have stepped up in it now. Like there's loads of kind of little pop-up bars. And so I wasn't drinking myself, but pop-up bars along the side of the parade ring, and seemed easy enough. There was no massive queues for bathrooms or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see. Like obviously there'll be more again going to the DRF. Like I kind of said last year, I wouldn't bother going next year because it was fair hard to get a drink or do anything up there. But I'll be going to see Galopin Des Champs, and I won't mind what kind of crowd is going to be there for that day. But yeah, they seem to be improving on it anyway.
Good stuff. And you were down in Limerick, Johnny, on at least one of the days. What was the crowd down there like? What was the atmosphere like? Different kettle of fish, I suppose, compared to Leopardstown, where the big stuff is happening most of the time.
Yeah, I was actually just talking about looking forward to going to Naze for the Lawlers Day because it's such a compact race course, and obviously, you speak about fog. They were desperately unlucky last year, so hopefully they're grand in that regard. Limerick is completely different. Like it was built as this sort of big, big modern arena. I've never been a massive fan of the layout because it's so wide of an expanse, and like the horses are kind of a good bit away from you as well. But having said that, like there was a good buzz there yesterday, and there were some local winners like Gillian Scott. Yesterday had a winner, and Charles Burns the well-back winner, and you could hear the roar. Like where I'm reporting for the TV, I'm way away from that, and you could hear the roar. And to be honest, like the biggest buzz nearly of the whole day was the Hunter's Chase, and like you can kind of be maybe some Hunter's Chases aren't necessarily for the purists all the time, but like Dara Allen, who rode the horse for Terence O'Brien, he was just saying after the race that like 4 of his uncles are involved with it. And I was talking to them afterwards that they've been involved in horses. I think 1 or 2 of them have been involved for like 35 odd years. He said the amount of bad news you get and the money spent in that time was Cons Rock. And I really do think people who get involved in ownership of horses do deserve a bit of credit. You are literally they're just spunking money away, like left, right, and centre. It's really expensive. The National Hunt Games, talking to Philip Fenton after his winner yesterday, he's like, we buy foals now. So if you buy a foal for National Hunt Racing, the money you're spending before he gets to track, and after his first one, he's probably next to worthless. Like, and it's a really, really expensive game. So the lads who are involved in the syndicate of Cons Rock, the aptly named Near or Never syndicate, well, they're more near than never anyway after Cons Rock. They put a lot of money in, and to have their nephew then ride a winner, Dara Allen. Terence O'Brien is just a gentleman of the game. There's such a buzz around, like so many people there in the parade ring, so many people shaking the hands of them, and they might have a horse with the Hunter's Chase at Cheltenham on their hands. And it was great to see like the difference people going racing makes is just off the charts. Like we spoke about this, that like some of the meetings that went ahead in Britain because the jockeys deemed it was okay, even though the spectators could see nothing. Like that's a disgrace. Like if the spectators can't even see the big screen, what's the point? Like you're just running it for the horses and the jockeys. Racing is nothing without the people paying in and the owners who pay for the horses and spectators, and that's what it needs to be about. And I felt there was a lot of that in Limerick yesterday. And on the last note on that, to see the crowds of and see the racing host note extraordinary rise in attendance as festive crowds swell across Britain. It was a magic National Hunt at Christmas. It was brilliant. And to have the crowds back, there's so much negativity around racing at the moment in terms of crowds being down. There was so much to say about this Christmas.
Yeah. The one thing I would say is that I agree with you around the fog. I think it's a mess for the paying punter in, isn't it? That they can't see the racing. And they should be given something back. Give them a voucher for the next day. Give them a free drink. Give them something. It just seems a bit unfair for the 17,000 people who turned up at Leopardstown and Stevens' Day and couldn't see the track at all. What do you make of that, Emma? It was all right the day you were there, but you can see how you'd be a little bit aggrieved, wouldn't you, making your big day to the races and you can't see what's happening.
You would be now. To be fair, now like I think they're better running it than not running it. Like I'd rather miss a little bit of the race than have no racing over the first 2 days of Christmas. But I think the people on course should have been at least partially refunded their tickets. Like it wasn't cheap going to Leopardstown now. I think it was €45 at the gate on Saturday. Like if you're paying €45 and you can't even see the horses, you'd be fairly aggrieved. And I'm not sure what happened in Leopardstown. I didn't hear of anyone getting refunds or at least give them a free drink or a voucher to get a bit of food or something. Yeah, it wouldn't be ideal. But I was still glad to see bits of the races. Anyway, it would have been better than no racing. But yeah, thank God it cleared for Galopin Des Champs at least on the Saturday.
Yeah, good stuff. One other thing, Johnny, I wanted to ask you about. You did a nice interview with John Ryan down in Limerick as well. He lost his good horse, did he, over Christmas, Lucid Dreams?
Yeah, I suppose like racing is special because of trainers do not train the same way. John Ryan trains and runs his horses differently. So I'd say 99.9% of trainers, his attitude is run them when they're healthy. And Lucid Dreams was a horse who was like, he was so late in life starting off that he was running quite a bit, but this is a horse with so much ability. He was totally entitled to be running the race he was running in. And I always find John's campaign of his horse interesting because he's a believer as well at the lower level. The handicapper doesn't do anything. If you run your horses and even if they disappoint, the handicapper brings down the weight. So he's kind of he's a very sporting attitude to racing horses. And then you see like his reaction to Lucid Dreams. So I'd known that the horse had passed away, and I spoke to him pre-race on Racing TV Extra about Ad Calum, and he wasn't, he's usually very bullish about his horses, but he was actually strangely kind of subdued. And I did feel that was from losing Lucid Dreams. But after the race, then, so you're interviewing it. I try to interview the jockey and the trainer if I can. And Dara Doyle, David Doyle, who's having a brilliant year, and I give the horse a lovely ride. I think David is one that was a jockey to look out for. He was there, and John Scarper, which is kind of unlike him. So I met at my business to see if he could come back. I think he might have had a run in the next race, and maybe he was kind of rushing, but he came back out anyway. And honest to God, like what he said in that little minute or so I was talking to him, would be the absolute antidote to all these anti-racing people who think horses are mistreated and yada yada. Like the way he spoke about Lucid Dreams was the first horse every morning he put on the walker, and he literally started to cry. And I was like, this is just this is staggering, the kind of honesty from him. And he was beginning to walk off, and it was like it was really touching that this is how much that horse meant to him. And he doesn't need to be raised 140 or 145. That's the exact same reaction that people looking after horses have all around the country. And for some trainers, there's a bit of an emotional detachment in that it's a business, and they kind of need to divorce themselves, like doctors and nurses who work on the coalface. They kind of need to remove themselves from the hardship that they see every day. But John Ryan there for me that's why we love horse racing, and that's why people love horses. And I just love the honesty of he'd had a winner, but he was just breaking down on the back of a horse that he lost the day before.
Yeah. Just looking ahead now this week, I see tomorrow we've got Punchestown free in for anyone who didn't get to see the race in Leopardstown because of the fog. You can go free to Punchestown, and you can see Noble Talent. It's going to run, Emma, is it?
He is, yeah, he is. I hope they get up.
He's the good thing of the year, Emma. He's the good thing of the year. He is.
Yeah, he might be my horse to follow. I haven't come up in a while on the show. Danny's back on board. Yeah, he should have a good chance now. Hopefully, he was going to go for the Team Duggan, but he thought he wasn't maybe rated highly enough for it. He was supposed to run in between, but he just went a bit off himself. So we said we'd go for this one, and yeah, hopefully he'll run a nice race now.
Lovely stuff. He's up 8 pounds, I see, from the last day. I see he's up against a horse that there'll be a day in somewhere is Brazil running a handicap over fences. He's had a few quietish runs, I've noticed. Anyway, we'll go for a horse to follow, whatever caught your eye over Christmas. I'll start off with one anyway. I think it could be one for the Supreme Novice Hurdle, which at the minute they're betting 10-1 the field, which most of these races we're seeing very short price anti-post favourites for all the big races in Cheltenham. But the Supreme, we've got Romeo Coolio, I think, heads the market at the minute at about 10-1, but there must be value in there somewhere, I think. And one that caught my eye is William Money. We talked about this in the show last week. Very decent bumper horse of Barry Connell's. ran first time over hurdles. He made an absolute howler of a mistake at the halfway stage in the race where he caught his hind legs and sprawled on landing and everything. I thought he was going to be pulled up, but in fairness to Finney Maguire, he let him settle, got him back into it. He finishes second. He's well beaten by the winner, work ahead of Henry de Bromheads, who could be a good horse too. I see he's priced at 25s with the Supreme. You wouldn't mind a little bit of that each way, maybe too. But I thought William Money, if he comes out the next day and wins his second start over hurdles, he's back on track again. He didn't do a huge amount wrong at Leopardstown bar that one mistake. So he was one for me. 50s each way for the Supreme. Right, Johnny, what about you?
Yeah, I hope I get Hello Neighbour at some point. I know he did the job all out, obviously, in the juvenile hurdle, but for a grade 2 start with the novice sort of nature of the race, he was good. So I hope somewhere on for the Triumph. I've had fairly few anti-post bets in recent years, the way betting has gone, but I did have a few quid on him at decent prices. But I don't know, I haven't really even looked at the market yet for the Fox Hunters, but Consrock is a horse I'm going to put forward. I didn't think I'd be putting forward a horse from the Hunter's Chase at Limerick from the 4 days. And to be honest, like I only looked at the race the morning of the race, kind of going through it, like, and obviously you have a hot favourite who has back form at Cheltenham in the big race, but Consrock is 7, going on 8, and lots of comparisons to Answer to Cave here, because I remember he'd missed a lot of time when he won a maiden hurdle in Mallow, actually. So it wasn't Limerick, it was Mallow. But I remember he won, and there were a few highly touted horses in the race. And I was saying to Terence O'Brien after, I was like, how good could this horse be? And he ended up running at Cheltenham. He ended up running a very good race behind good horses in the Martin Pipe. But Consrock has only had, this is literally his rules debut. He's had 2 runs in point to points, one in 2022, one in February of this year, which is 2024. I think he had one more then, which was basically he finished low in the point to points. But he was quite well backed in this Hunter's Chase, which looked a fairly hot renewal. And I loved the way he jumped down the back. Like, he was given Rocky Sawyer, who was basically went out in front and looked like he was kind of in a nice kind of rhythm. He totally out jumped him at stages, and he was taking on Will Go Ahead, who was in real brilliant form and points from the last, and he powered away from him. And the buzz from the lads afterwards was like something else. Some of them be well into pension age, and the buzz they're getting, thinking potentially of Cheltenham. If they can keep this horse sound, he's going to rock up at the Fox Hunters, albeit without experience. Maybe Terence to get a bit more experience into him beforehand. But I thought it was a phenomenal performance for a horse of his inexperience. 7 going on 8, but 8 is but a number for him given how little he's raced.
Good stuff. Yeah, we look forward to seeing him if he does turn up in Cheltenham or wherever he turns up before. Right, Emma, what have you got for us? Finish the year in style.
You just give Hello Neighbour on the jump season preview, I think 33-1 for the Triumph hurdle, so that was a fairly good shout at the time, to be fair. But I think like the maiden hurdles are always worth watching on there. I think that Kate Doughty's kind of an obvious one. He's been cut for the Supreme. He looked more like a stayer to me now, to be honest. Like, Willie gave him as a dark horse at our stable tour there a couple of months ago.
What about the drifting?
Yeah, I couldn't understand it, but at the same time, you couldn't back him with any confidence. Like, it was like an Ergamine that day in Cork. Like, he drifted out. I think me and you actually did the preview for it. We were both kind of saying like an Ergamine will surely win this, but he'll be long odds on. And then got to Mallow and he was 5-4, but she's like, I couldn't be backing him and he's 5-4. There must be something wrong with the horse. Then he goes out and wins. You look like an idiot because you don't back him. But like, that's the kind of dilemma you've been when they drift like that. But yeah, that Kate Doughty. But there was one I just saw a couple of, was it William Hill or someone went on a no bet for the festival. So I'm just having a look at the prices for a few races, and I think Better Days Ahead for the 3 mile novice, whatever that's called now, with the Brown Advisory, he's 16-1. I thought if that race was ran slightly different in Leopardstown, he probably would come out on top. And I'd say 16-1 looks a massive price about him. And another one that caught my eye, Cargate for the Mayor's Hurdle. I'm hoping Better Days Ahead will go for the champion hurdle, because I'd say Cargate, Willie seems to be going the same route as Lassie out last year. I think he said he's going to go for the international hurdle in Cheltenham and then straight for the Mayor's. And like, her form with Sergino and Majra from last year looks fairly strong now. She obviously beat Butler's Secret then in Punchestown as well. So I'd say, like, fingers crossed that Gordon does go for the champion. I'd say Cargate is 12-1 for the Mayor's Hurdle as well. Kind of caught my eye. I know that she didn't run during the week, but I just thought I'd put it in there.
Yeah, nice one to throw in all the same. Yeah, you could be right there. Cargate depends on what goes for that Mares. You wouldn't want Cargate up against Lassie Mouth, but that mightn't happen, I suppose, or Brighter Days Ahead for that point.
Well, anyway, one last thing, Vinny. Sorry I've been rabbiting on a bit and buzzing from the question, but Emma was on about, like, horses drifting, you could actually tell an awful lot about a person by the way he bets or she bets. Does he or she is he or she happy to back these drifters on the day, or does he or she run a mile? Because for me as a punter, it's the most challenging thing possible. Like, how is this horse, who was 1-3 the last days, now nearly 9-2 on the exchanges, trained by Willie Mullins, who's basically a lightly raced horse from France. And as Emma says, you look like an Egypt afterwards, but you also look like a complete Egypt if you back Ballyburn at 7-4.
It's true, isn't it? Yeah, some of it can be impossible, and that's the problem, isn't it? The betting can put you on one or put you off one in a big way. And the worst of it is if you do and you go in, say for argument's sake, with that horse, Emma, that dark horse of Willie's, Kai Doughty, that if you'd backed that at evens the night before and you wake up the next morning, you see 2-1, 3-1, 7-2. What do you do? Do you go in again?
Go in again.
Keep going in again. Yeah, yeah. That's the problem.
I used to do that, Vinny. I swear to God, like, I was borderline professional gambling for a year or two, or certainly like gambling, like putting over heavy turnover. And the one thing I learned is never, ever, ever do that. Like, where you think it's too good to be true, 2-1, 5-2, 3-1, 7-2, 4-1, and you keep going in. And you keep going in, all of a sudden, like, you're looking at your bank and you're here, what am I doing here? And it keeps drifting. You don't know why, and you soon find out why.
Yeah, yeah. With the exception of Kai Doughty, of course. Which one? There you go. Yeah. Anyway, if you are gambling in the new year, do gamble responsibly and make sure to subscribe to our channel. And we hope you have a great 2025, and we'll see you again in the new year. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.